Where are we? Hello! Well, hello folks. Sorry, that's a little technical excitement. Hi, welcome back. It's so lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited. I've got a lovely not low effort but low complication session today, so I'm just going to turn that music down a little bit. Let me know if the microphone sounds all right and if the music is the right level. It's so lovely to be back. Happy Saturday. So I hope you're feeling well. If you are or you're not, just drop something in the chat and then I know. Oh, hello, so lovely to see you. Creative Dragonfly, my top star pupil. So I guess you've been doing some of those amazing resin. They look quite Christmassy, or was that just me? Your resin casts, they look amazing. So please tell me if the volume's not great or your view isn't great. But without further ado, I will get on and yeah. So what am I? I'm going to take you through some of the pictures that we're going to be looking at, and then some of the exercises, and then we'll get started. So right, just need to quickly look at my streaming setup and make sure this is working okay. Yeah, I think that is fine. I can see that you're on there, right, and you can see me. Okay, so we're going to be looking at all sorts of drawing, and I absolutely love drawing, as you probably know if you follow me. I've got some references here for us to work from. No, they are for Christmas. Great, and the sound is perfect. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Right, let me see if I can get this a bit closer and I'm not stretching across my drawing board. Got a bit of things supposed to make my job easier, but I think it maybe not. Right, so I wanted to just talk very briefly before we start about the different uses for drawing. So drawing, it can be an end result in itself, even if it's something like this. So it could be something like an illustration, it could be a picture like this, a sketch, or it could be a really finished picture. It can also, you can use drawing as a way of like thinking aloud. So obviously Leonardo use this a lot. Let me move that there so people on Instagram can see. So there's an example. I sometimes use it. Let me see if I can choose. So when I'm doing commissions, oh, there's a drawn commission. So that's a horse and rider, as you can see. That's done coloured pencil. So all the things that we're going to be talking about today are really relevant for all that sort of stuff. And also, if you're working as a professional artist, you can use it for things like this. These are thumbnails. And when you're doing commissions and things, you can, or if you're planning your own drawing, you can use thumbnails to try things out. And so drawing is really functional as well as being decorative. So here, this for me is one of the ultimate in decorative drawings. I'm going to put this over here for again a second, just because people watching on, hi Nikki, I can see you guys watching on Instagram as well. Thank you so much for joining. If you want to watch on YouTube, you'll get a much better view because you can see stuff that side and that side, but you're really welcome on Instagram and I can see your comments. Hi Caro, it's lovely to see you. So if you want to join on YouTube, you can go on my website. There's a link in my bio, and if you click on there, you'll see the video to get to this, and then you'll be able to see full widescreen on YouTube, and you can join the chat there as well. Anyway, so here's an example. This is a 9th century Celtic biblical, it's called the Book of Kells, done by some monks, and there's an example where drawing can be used decoratively. So I just love that, and but partly because if you follow me, you'll know I also love calligraphy. Right, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some common exercises to look at how light falls on objects, how you render it when you're drawing. Rendering is just like how you sort of describe it while you're drawing. but we're also going to look at some kind of guiding principles or rules that you can, if you learn them and you learn to use them, then like all rules, you can then bend them or completely break them. But they're a really useful way to get the most out of your drawing and get the most out of your skills, so that you've got that control. So even if you're drawing out of your imagination, you can still make things look real, and that's a lot of what this is about, and a lot of that is about understanding light and dark, which is not unique to drawing. Anyway, let's get on with some fun things. So I thought we'd start with some warming up, and if you want to draw along, you're very welcome. That's just a coloured drawing which I did last, following Arthur Gaines' stream. So here we go. Here are some very, very basic materials. I've got a cone here, and I will have a reference photo of the cone, so you don't need a cone. You can use the photo, it's just as good for this exercise. So first of all, we're going to start literally just using a pencil, and I will talk a little bit. Some of this they're very traditional skills, and they are not the only way of doing it. So I really recognise that there are different ways to do things. So I'm not saying you must do this. I'm just saying here's a way that a lot of artists, contemporary and traditional, do it, and it's worth learning, even if you then decide you want to do something completely different. So the first thing to do is how to pick up your pencil. I know this seems really, really basic, but when you're holding a pencil, most of us to write hold our pencil like that, don't we? And we have lovely control. We move from the wrist, and that's generally what we've learned. Some people write like this. But generally it all involves some sort of clamping of the hand, and then you rest your hand on the paper. So what I would like to encourage you to try and do is, especially when you're drawing, is to put your pencil down and grab it like this. Grab it from on top near the end, and this is a more traditional drawing or artist way of holding a pencil. So you'll notice that I've got quite a long sharpened tip to my pencil, and if you want to do that, you can do it using, I do it with a craft knife, and you can get it to sort of length that you like, and then you can use a bit of sandpaper, and that way you can make your pencil have a nice smooth profile. You could go to town with this if you wanted, and that way you can make really wide marks with your pencil and really tight marks. And if you hold it like this, one of the many advantages is you can see what you're drawing, whereas if you're holding it like this, you can't really see your drawing so well. So that's one reason why it's really nice to hold a paintbrush. Paintbrushes are the same. Let me get that out of the way. So try, if you want to play the game, sharpen your pencil to a tip and sand it down a little bit so it's got a nice long end like that. And this is really much easier with soft pencils. So I'm going to be using an 8B, which is about as soft as they get, but you can use what you want. So, but this way, first of all, on your first sheet of paper, if you're drawing along, please have a go at just making some different marks, and I would suggest you try lifting your hand off the page so your hand isn't resting on the paper, so you're moving much more freely, and you might make some really jagged different marks. But you will find, if you practice, it's like anything, it's like Creative Dragonfly, I think you knit, don't you? I know you crochet, but all those things, if you learn to hold your tools properly, then you find in the long run that you can be much faster and more efficient. So it's like that. That's really what we're doing. We're learning to hold tools in a good way, which might feel awkward to start with, but I promise you it's worth it in the end. Thousands of professional artists can't be wrong. So it's not the only way, but if you can pick your pencil up like that, and then just try making some marks. So try all sorts of different marks. Try doing some swirls like that. Try using the side. Maybe see if you can shade an area like this. See if you can do it so you can't even see the lines in the middle, like that. So just experiment, try doing something like that. How about some sort of like a ticking motion, like that. Look at these, it's amazing the variety of marks that you can get with a simple pencil. That's one of the things I absolutely love about graphite, is the amount of control with practice that you can have over the marks you can make. So by all means, if you're finding this difficult and you want to hold it like a pencil, how you're used to, then go right ahead. But I would highly recommend trying all sorts of things like this. And this is a really nice, see, look, you can, with practice, you can definitely control it. And see how much I can see my drawing because my hand's not in the way. So this is a really nice, doing spirals. I'm going to try and keep my actual drawing slightly in the middle so that people on Instagram can see. I'm just going to turn that over. This is such fun. I really like doing this, and it's a great way to loosen up. So you can try like moving your hand like that. See if you can like go on a journey with your pencil. Try using your other hand. I'm right-handed. You might be ambidextrous or left-handed. Try using your other hand, and I have to say that is a really effective tool sometimes when you're drawing something and you want to make it look a little bit more lively, a little bit more. So that's with my left hand. I've got much less control, and sometimes losing control is actually really good and helps you just do your better looking. Okay. So there is the beautiful pencil, and we will be using that later. So we're going to be doing, with graphite, we're going to be doing our cones. So I'm going to be, I will share the reference photo of the cone so that we can draw from that. And we're also going to be doing let's go back on here so you can see. We're going to be doing this, actually this is an egg, and this is from a previous live stream. You might remember this one. Do you remember I did chickens and eggs a while ago? If you look back on my YouTube channel you can see that. So we're going to be doing a version of the egg, which is the sphere, and it's just a great way to illustrate and practice some of those key concepts around light and shading and shadows that make things feel big and real. Okay, so right, now if there's anything, if you want to ask me any questions, go right ahead. If you want to make any observations, or if you want me to go over anything again, I'm really happy to, but I'm just going to plow on. So I'm going to use craft paper for this next exercise. Let me just, oh, I've got some scissors. Let's cut a little bit here. If you've got some, if you've got the brown envelope or some wrapping paper, anything like that, the object of this exercise is we're going to be looking at tonal value. So let me move back to the drawing board. Okay, so now you can see. Okay, so we're looking at tonal value. We're looking at learning to grade really well from darkest darks, so black, to lightest lights, i.e. white. I'm going to need something to just weight this down. I think it's got a bit of a curve on it. Really should have had some blue tack or sellotape. Let's see, what have I got? No, nothing in here. Mind. Oh, I know, I've got some sticky labels in my sticky label drawer. Right, so the reason why we practice value scales is manyfold. I'm just sticking my paper down before I go back onto the camera. So it's about learning to be very selective about what you put in your drawing in terms of where you start, as you get more advanced, you start to design your shadows, you start to design where you put the lights and darks, and you can do all sorts of tricks to make the objects in your drawings look real and 3D. So and the first thing to do is to learn control of your values, and I don't mean your life principles. So what I'm talking about is values all the way from black to white. So on this exercise, to start with, what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a value scale. So I would like you to do a rectangle like this. There we are. And I would like you to section off the middle like that. So if you draw a square in the middle, or like a rectangle, and then I would like you to take this side and split it in half like that, and then split each of those halves in half like that, and then this goes in half, and the same again this side. So when you've done that, you should end up with 9 squares onto which we're going to do our value scale. Let me just move that a little bit out of the way so that I can put this, so that we can put that in the middle. Okay, so, Brian, hello, it's so nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Creative Dragonfly is watching, so you can, yeah, I expect you've been on the same stream together. It's really nice to see you, Brian. Your picture's on its way. I hope very much it arrived safely. It went a few days ago. How are you, Brian? I'm going to try and think of some stories. I gave a workshop in a school yesterday, so I've got a couple of stories from that. Right, so Brian, we're working on basics, and we're working on all those things which we try and keep in mind. And we've got a value scale here. I've done 9 squares. If you want to, you also sent the painting to the, oh, did you? Oh, cool. Wow, so you're waiting tentatively. Okay, so here we go. Right, so we're going to be doing, I would like you with so using a black pencil, this could be a black drawing pencil. You can use graphite if you want, but graphite goes only to a dark grey. So if you've got a piece of charcoal or a charcoal pencil, you have me promoted on, oh, Brian, thank you so much. Yes, I will go. I know I keep saying I will go on your Discord. Right, thank you. Okay, so I better get on with this because this is going to hopefully be useful. Right, welcome people who are joining on Instagram. So first thing I would like you to do is get in those extremes. So your darkest dark, I've got a seam going on under here. Yeah, never mind. So your darkest dark, you make that as black as you possibly can. Really, you can go over it several times, get your lines going in different directions. Absolutely no need to do any smudging or blending here. So it's totally fine if you want to have your, sorry, it'll make you feel seasick for a second. Right, there we go. If you want to have some lines showing, and it doesn't matter if these lines aren't straight, this is just for practice. Okay, then get your white one and put it in there. Now hopefully if you've got craft paper or brown paper, it will be pretty much what you would call a mid-tone. So if you look at the colour of your paper, it doesn't matter if it's blue or grey or what colour it is, but hopefully the dark or lightness of it is about halfway between black and white. So this is an exercise that I invented for yesterday's workshop at the school where I was teaching, and I was teaching A-level students who were mostly quite inscrutable, so I'm not really sure if they liked this exercise or not, but I was very pleased with it. So in fact I'm going to go and say I was very pleased with it. So I hope you like this as well, and it's not just a simple value scale. All will be revealed. So what we're going to do is we're going to reserve this middle one. This is going to stay like that. So I want you to treat this one as a sacred space where you don't put your pencil. So this is the middle value. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make gradations all the way along. And what we're doing is we're learning to control that value. So I'm going to start with this square, and it's not an accident. And I'm going to be using the black pencil on this side and then the white pencil on this side. So I'm going to be doing it, so as you can see, it doesn't have to be really neat. There we go. And I've got a kind of a middle value there. So now I've got something to relate it to. And here is, I'm going to give you a clue, top tip, guess what this is? I bet Brian knows. What am I talking about there? I bet you do this sometimes because your values are brilliant. You're really good at that, Brian. I'll let you see if you can guess what I was doing there. Or anyone on Instagram, if you put answers in, I can. Why didn't earlier hello. Why didn't earlier illustrations have shadows? Right. Oh, hi Nikki. Okay. So I wonder what if you're talking about the earlier illustrations I was showing. That's because I was looking at, if that's what you're asking about, the illustrations, it was just a mix. So I was looking at line as well as shadows. But at the moment we're looking at shadows, but obviously drawing is a combination of line and shadow. And this is, I'm hoping that this is useful whether you're into illustration or other sorts of fine art or even abstract work. All this kind of control is hopefully valuable. I'll forget also I can learn. So Brian, thank you. So you're going to forget all the basics, are you? So you can learn from me, right? Thank you very much. I'd be delighted to teach you, but I think you know quite a lot to forget. Anyway, right, let's go back to this drawing board. So next, of course, you've probably guessed it. So this is where you really have to hold back. Oh, I was holding my pencil the wrong way, exactly how I showed you not to. So what I was showing there was squinting. So if you squint, and by squint I mean that, if you like shut your eyes so you can't see so much, then it's actually much easier to judge whether you're looking at something that you're drawing or whether you're looking at your drawing. It's easier to judge the values. So if I do that like that there, you can see that's actually lighter than that one. So I'm trying to make this square halfway between this one here, move that over, between this one and this one. So I need to make this darker. So I'm going to go in a little bit darker. In history, what? Sorry, Nikki. Right, I see what you mean. Okay. Let me go on the chat. So, guys on YouTube and Twitch, hi. Nikki on Instagram has just asked why in history do illustrations tend not to have squint again? Brian, I'm not going to just squint for you all day. I'm going to give you one more squint, okay? Fill your boots. This is the last time you're going to see it. Right, this is squinting. Ready? There. Okay, I'm going to talk to Nikki because Nikki's asking really sensible questions. Nikki, thank you for your very sensible question. I just trying to think. Yes, I mean, if we look at so then the Leonardo that I was showing you didn't have. They tended to use when they were using ink. So often, if they were using ink, oh, Brian. Right, thanks so much. I'll look forward to seeing that clip later. So they tended to use ink pens, and obviously with ink pens you shade, it's harder to shade, but you can shade with hatching. So they did effectively do shadows and values, but in the illustrations like the Book of Kells and Illuminations, they didn't tend to. I guess it's something that's evolved, and often styles evolve. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I'm interested to know, Nikki, where you're coming from with your question. So if you're thinking of anyone in particular, then do tell me. I might have some more, or you might have some thoughts on what you think. But yeah. So okay, let's get back to this value scale. So you can see I'm really not fussing or stressing about the nature of the marks. The main thing is just to have it. The question, Brian, was about why didn't historically earlier illustrations have shadows? Right. Actually, yeah, that's probably a point. Brian can probably answer it much better than me. I'll put that like that, and then you can see Brian's answer on Instagram. This is the joy of Streamlabs, is that I can show the people on Instagram better. Oh yes, yes, you're absolutely right, Creative Dragonfly. Yes, we had that rather unpleasant incident. I'm sort of able to block people, but I thought what I should have just done is removed it from the chat. Anyway, I'm not really too bothered about that. If you do as many nudes as I do, you get used to all that stuff. Right. Okay, so I'm going to do the same now at this end. So I'm trying to do here in white, I'm trying to find halfway between that colour and that colour. So I'm going to do something like that. Hope that looks a bit brighter actually. So I'm going to use my putty rubber and just knock that back. Oh, here's a quick, I know I've shown you this before, but if you want to knock things back, you can just roll them with the putty rubber, and that's really good. Okay, so here we go. So you can imagine that the A-level students by now were absolutely in raptures and couldn't wait to do more of my exercises. But they were very good. And it was particularly heartwarming, and I thought this was a really nice, general lesson that these A-level students and you know, young people in general, I think they were really, even though many of them weren't into drawing, they were perhaps into photography or architecture or abstract work. They still played the game, you know, they still got into it, they still gave it a really good go, and some of the exercises are quite difficult, and I was so impressed with their open-mindedness, and it really made me think that when you're learning art in general, whether you're going down the painting it, you know, oh hello Jay, we've always had light, but earlier especially Chinese art don't have shadows. Ah, yes. Yes, well, yeah, and I think a lot of Chinese art, if I'm right, is brush, you know, brush and ink, and you know, just all those sort of, they're much more monochrome. Yes, yeah, but obviously shadows in real life have always been there, but I think we've educated ourselves of how we see, haven't we? How we look and how we render things. Brian, right, so we've got some very, very interesting arty insights here from Brian. Hello, Jay. Brian, so have you ever heard about the squid that has a bad eyesight? No, I haven't heard about the squid with bad eyesight, Brian. What about the squid with bad eyesight? Right, I'm going to get on with this while you think of the answer. Anyone else? Does anyone know this joke? Right. So let's go here and try and get halfway. And one top tip I was going to say for checking how you're doing with this is if you take a photo of it and turn it to grayscale, then if you knock the colour out, you can see more clearly. But hopefully you can see this square is slightly lighter than that one, so I've got a reasonable stepping. This one could maybe go a little bit darker. Okay, so thank you, Jay. That's for Jay, that's for you. Thank you so much. I hope you're having a nice time and I hope you're feeling well. Right. Okay, so here's a basic value scale, and you can do this on white with graphite, but I'm going to now teach you something using I'm going to change the traditional grayscale and So we're going to start the same way, reserve that middle square like that, divide in two, same here. Right, so now you can do this to either side. They named the squid Squid. Brian, you just made that up, didn't you? Come on, be honest. Brian, it's very late where you are, I know. But thank you. I have to say, beggars can't be choosers. You are the only joker on this stream at the moment. So if anyone wants to add any jokes, Brian is my joker for now. Right, so thank you, Brian. I do appreciate your jokes very much. Right, so here is, this is now going to be our mid-tone. So we're going to be really, different here. So what I'm trying to show you, and you can do it the other way as well, is I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to compress the lights. So I'm going to fit again, lightest light in here, like that, bright white, and darkest dark in here. Oh, I was having so much fun, I forgot to have my tea. You made it up. Cheers. Here's to made up great jokes. Right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, if that's going to be my mid-tone, I need to find a white halfway between those two. So I'm actually going to use that colour there, like this. What do you call a deer with no eyes? Ah, right, Brian. This is a. I know this joke. Anyone else? Do you call it? Now you see me, now you don't. Right. So you know where we're going with this, don't you? So now what I'm trying to do is I'm expanding the variety. What do you call an egg that is... Oh my goodness, that was from Creative Dragonfly. Oh, fantastic. We've got 2 jokers on. This is a record for my stream. Right. So a deer with no eyes. Brian, do you know what you call a deer with no eyes? Or maybe Nikki, if you're still watching. What is called the quarter value scale? Ah. Why is it called the quarter? I don't know, Nikki. So I didn't know it was called that. So that's really interesting. This is called a quarter value scale, or is that a 4? Is that one? I don't know. Right. So what do you call an egg that is too proud? You call it egocentric. Oh, I'm gonna have to start dancing in a minute. I'm not dancing. No eyes and no legs. Right. Why is it called? I thought she was making a joke too. Right. We're getting all out. Right. What do you call a deer with no eyes and no legs? What do you call a deer with no eyes and no legs? It might have, yeah. I found something with no eyes and only one leg this morning, actually, on the doorstep when I came down. The cats had left me a present. It wasn't very nice. My dear, what in the world is that? Right. So I am just going to suspend this joking for a second, just to answer Nikki's question, because I think, Nikki, you were asking why is it called a value scale, which is quite good, and that's a really excellent question, because these are values. So any colour has colours have different properties. So if we look at this drawing, and if you were to turn this to black and white, you would see that this is really light, and this is like a sort of darkish. This is obviously very dark here. But you could say this bit here, whilst it's a really warm brown, is actually what we call it's the same level of darkness as this area here. So they're different colours, but they're both a kind of middle level dark. So that's called the value. So when you make marks on paper, as well as having the colour, you have the value to think about. So if you were to change this image to black and white, then you would have still no idea. You would still have no idea. No, then you would have an idea, because of the varying degrees of lights and darks. Yes, so exactly, Brian, thank you. So this is called value. So this is a very light value, and then this is very dark value, and then these are in between. So what you're doing with a value scale is you're trying to show the steps, and by practicing it, what you learn is to practice the how to grade on your way up. So what I was hoping to show you is I'm going to go for a bit of a middle colour. So I'm going to put, say, that one kind of there, and I'm going to get a bit darker. And this is a really good exercise in control, because it's obviously harder because you're trying to do more steps in the dark. Like that. You can actually do this without the divides, but that's even. Right, okay. So there we've got a different value scale. So so this is what you call compressing the lights. How do you call a dog that can't hear? How do you call it? I don't know. I'm going to have to think very laterally to answer your joke, Brian. So when you're doing, I'm going to try, and I haven't prepared this, just briefly to show you how in practice this can work. So you can basically, say I was drawing, what shall I draw? Say I was drawing a bird like this. So I'm just going to draw a loose map of a bird, because in memory of the dead bird that I found, which had only one leg and not many eyes either, and was a bit the worse for wear by the cats. I thought it was a dead hedgehog at first, so I was sort of pleased it was a bird and not a hedgehog, because I think it was a seagull. Right, so say you were drawing a bird and you were using, let's use these value scales as examples. So if I was drawing it with this there, and say the light was coming from here, okay, and I might have then, I would have, say, I'm rendering the turning form there. So this has got light hitting it here, like that. And I might have, my darkest dark might be the beak, and maybe in here, and of course we'd have a shadow. So we've got the shadow to think about there. And we might have darkest dark in here, okay, and a bit of, so we'll turn the form like that, okay, and some things. So I'm using there, I've got, that's my lightest light there, and I've got a lot of grades down of lights going down to the dark, like that. I'm not sure this is going to work as an illustration, but we'll see. Okay, so actually, do you know what? This is the other one. So here what I've shown you is this value scale. So what I've shown you is if you were drawing a bird using this, I haven't kept much of the area light, and I've just used the white for the very lightest. Let's do some background as well. So we've got the background there, which will make that white pop out there. Okay, so the value scales in this drawing, only the very lightest bits I've drawn white. Okay, but if I was to draw this bird again, I'll try and do it next to it. So say I drew the same bird then with more of a middle, with more of this version of the value scale. So we've still got the darkest darks, okay, but more of the bird, half the bird is, so we've got much lighter so actually the black grades faster, like that, and here as well. And if I'd done it on coloured paper, you'd be able to see more that there would be. So if this was the same bird, and you can do this with let's have, right, I'm going to check in with your jokes in a second. I can see there have been some hilarity, which tells maybe I'm not being entertaining enough here. Right, so this bird here, if I take that there, then you can see the outline of the bird there. So the darkest darks are still just as dark, but here I've stretched the darks and I've got more, I could have more you know, feather descriptions and things in the darks here, because I'm allowing more variety in the darks, whereas here I've split it more evenly between the darks and the lights. And when you control this, that is a real great way to show with your drawing, to get the viewer's eye where you want it, to show the viewer and drive them where they are. Oh, hi Brian, you're on Instagram as well, you're all over the place. Right, let's quickly check in with your jokes. Okay, so enough of that art nonsense. I know you, right, there we go, there's a value scale or two. And let's look at, right, so, okay, it's called a value scale, right. How do you call a dog that can't hear? You can't call him funny, they can't hear, right. My bad grammar, your bad grammar. I don't think, Brian, it was your bad grammar that ruined the joke. I think the joke ruined the joke. But you do get 15 out of 10 for trying. I might have to start a star chart. Should I start a star chart here? Right, there we go. Brian, stars. Okay, so here we go. Right, Brian and dragonfly. Right, I'm gonna do that like that. That's your dragonfly mark, and you get you've got 1 star each for good jokes and good behaviour. Okay, right. So I hope though that this makes sense, that you can see now the difference when you can really apply this in drawing. So what you can also do in your drawing is you could cut out. So you could look at you could cut out the top and the bottom. And so you could decide when you're drawing just to use those middle values, and that's a really good exercise because it teaches you really good control. And also when you're first doing a sketch, you can go even narrower. So when you're first doing a drawing, you can do this, and you can wait until nearer the end before you add the highlights and the darkest darks, and that way you don't commit too early. Okay, what do you call a star that lives on Earth? Oh wait, okay, we're going for stellar jokes then, right. I don't know, Brian, what do you call a star that lives on Earth? Right, put that here. Okay, so we're going to get on now with the cone. And I will just put these at the top a little bit. There we go. Right, hopefully let's get organised. There we are. Right. Hopefully there we go, you can see those. Right. And here is my pencil. You can call her Gail. Oh, Brian, you're too kind. I love you guys. You're all stars. You're my star. You're my stellar universe. So thank you. Right, but I'm sorry. I realise that this is a great big love-in, but I do have to. I'm here to teach you something. Do you know what? Those A-level students yesterday were much better behaved than you. They really were. Right, so let's go back to the drawing board, and I'm going to move my reference over to the cone. So I've got a cone here, just showing off so you know you haven't got one and I've got one. There, look, I did a little gloaty cone. So I've just made this cone. If you want to do it from life, you know, it is quite good to do these things from life, really. It's literally just a piece of paper with a bit of sellotape, so it's no great shakes. But I took this rather fetching photograph of it, and if you want to use this now or in the future, you can draw with it. You're very welcome to download it from my website. So I am going to talk a little bit about the value scale, but mostly just draw this cone from that image on the screen. So if you want to do the same, you are very welcome. I'm thinking that people on Instagram can't see it though, so I might just put it up here. You were forced and threatened to make jokes. Yes, well, that creative dragonfly is quite generally pretty gentle, I find. I'm very surprised that you felt any sort of pressure at all, Brian. I think that might have been all within yourself. But you certainly rose to the challenge. Okay, so I'm just trying to set this up so that people on Instagram can see the drawing board and the reference. Okay, lovely. Right, there's the reference. You can see the cone and you can see my drawing board. Right, so let's draw it here. So the reason why I chose a cone is because it is like a traditional exercise. Let's get this in the right place so you can see. And it's a traditional exercise for very good reason, and we're going to talk about turning form. Don't worry about your ellipse if you're doing that. You might like to try holding your pencil like this, and we're not going to worry about blending, so no worries with the blending thing. And what we are going to look at though is some shadows. So we're going to look at what's called form shadows and cast shadows, and this has got a very nice illustration here on this because I use my streaming light, which is nice and bright. So first of all, I'm going to block out that cast shadow, and looking at the value scale, I'm really looking at that end there. I'm looking at this here. So this form shadow, this cast shadow here. So cast shadows are the shadows that you get like this when light shines on something and blocks out the light next to it. Explain the shadow shapes in defining the form. Yes, I will be getting to that, Brian, and if we get a little bit later, if we get to the end of this exercise even, and you don't feel I've covered that, then yes, please do show. But I wasn't going to go into, because obviously cast shadows can exactly, as you say, describe form as they sit in it. I will cover that, yes. Okay, so this is a typical cast shadow. You can see that where it's near the object it's very dark, and then typically it gets lighter as you get away from the object like that. Okay, now if you're in a very bright day, you'll notice if you look at the shadows on the ground, you'll see that they tend to be much sharper edged. So that is using different sorts of shadows can really help you describe the quality of the light in the scene. So if you're in a very, if it's like what we call a very flat light, so if it's like a misty day or something, then you get, that star is me, Nikki. Ah, hi Nikki. Right, I'm very pleased to see Nikki is definitely joining in. Okay, so yes, so different sorts of shadows come from different kind of lighting scenarios. Now, if this, right, we'll come on to, I'm going to mention outer space as well later, but what I would now like to introduce you to is the form shadow. So this, this cone, obviously, I hope, has a very tight turn up here, so it turns very tightly. So if we take it into real life, if you look at my nose, you can see it's quite a fast turn from dark to light, whereas if you look at my forehead, it's a much smoother turn, and that's because so the light actually changes, so you get a more definite line here, and we'll come on later to if it's like a point, but that's why I was using this this night. I'll be using this later because it's really good to show the shape and the way that the form turns. So if you learn to control these values, you will find that you're much better able to describe different different form. So so in the same way, like on the nose, you've actually got up here, you've got quite a strong dark line, and if you squint at it, at the reference photo, you'll see that you can see it's strong, but then it becomes kind of invisible. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to shade as carefully as I can, but not too stressed. What you can do is use another piece of paper to mask it. So let's put that there, and then I can be much quicker, and I'll get a really nice straight line for free. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start by shading these pretty dark here, getting darker as I get to this side, but never as dark as that darkest dark in the shadow at the bottom. Okay, and you can see that it goes right round here like that. Okay, let's have a look at that now. Right, so oh, I've got come a little, I'm going to make that, it's not a perfect cone anyway. Right, there we go. So this line here, this kind of invisible line, is sometimes called the bedbug line, and it can also be called the shadow terminator. So that's where, if you imagine there was a beetle climbing on over your cone, when that beetle goes into the dark side, that's where the shadow starts. So that's where you really move into that shadow side of your value scale. So if you look at the value scale then, so if you are doing like a normal traditional drawing, you might say here's your mid-tone, and all your things on your shadow side are going to be from that lot, and all the things on your light side are going to be from that lot. But you can of course play around with it and distort it, as we saw before. Okay, but let's get back to our cone there. Right, so this is called the bedbug line, and that's really where, when you're drawing pictures, and some artists really bring this out, this bedbug line. Okay, so we have another thing which I would like to talk to you about, which is bounced or reflected light, and we'll look at this a bit more when we look at colour. But if you can imagine, I'm sure, that the light source is there. So that's our light source, our main light source. So if you're drawing something outside, that'll be the sun. Trust me, when you've seen an actual bedbug line, it's not as pretty as you think. Oh, do you? Oh gosh. Oh, you've got lots in the UAE. Oh gosh, yuck. That's when they bite you in a line, don't they? Ugh. Okay. Right, we luckily didn't see any of those, but that's not nice at all. Okay, so so here we go. We've got light coming here. Now, if we were in outer space, all this side here would be totally black. So there would be no light coming from the atmosphere. And that's why when you look at, say, the moon, you've got that. So so here's the moon like this. So if it was the moon in outer space and there was our light source, then the bedbug line would be like this, and the moon would be totally black, like that, and then you'd have your black outer space like that, and that's why you'd get, you know, obviously you get its different shapes depending on the position, but that's why you get like a sharp edge on the moon, because there is no other light. There's nothing lighting this side. Okay, so there's my slightly misshapen moon. But in this case, this is a real life scenario, and obviously we have light all around us. So we've got light coming in through the window, we've got light coming from the sky. So we've got all sorts of other light that you can call atmospheric light, and that comes down, and would you decide the tonal values at the start of the sketch? Is that yes? Oh my goodness, right, hang on one second. Creative Dragonfly, you get another star. Well done. Right, yes, that is exactly, that is one of the thank you, Creative Dragonfly. So one of the main objectives of using thumbnails is to resolve that your tonal values and your how you're going to compose your picture, but also, you know, are you going to do that, or are you going to do, you know, which of this, you know, this sort of thing are you going to do, and what works? So yes, definitely. Right. Thank you, very good point. Okay, so you can see I'm not worrying about, you know, showing sketchy lines. I'm also not bothering with smudging. And sometimes people are very tempted when they're drawing on form to draw this way. So they follow the form like that. And I would encourage you to experiment with drawing like round the form, particularly if you're drawing people. Or animals or organic shapes. It's very nice to draw round, to have your strokes going round the form, or in the opposite direction to the form. That's another way. Okay, so so this bounced light comes in here. You're very welcome. Right, comes in here, bounces off the surface and up back onto the object. So the bounced light comes in here like this. So what happens there is it means you get a slightly lighter area here. So you can actually see that on this rather excellent photo that I took, although I say it myself. So you can see that bounced light just in this area on the photo, I hope. So you can actually go a little bit darker then, and we'll do this again when we do the sphere. So you can go a little bit darker like that in the areas nearer or away from where that bounced light is coming. And we'll do this again on the sphere. It'll be that's another chance to cover that. Okay, but can you see how this matches what's happening on the cone? So this is bounced. It can be called bounced or reflected light. And when we look at colour, if we manage to get to colour in a little while, we'll see that actually that light carries the colour of the things that it bounces off. So this also has an effect, can have an effect on the temperature of the things in the picture. Okay, so we're thinking about our light source, we're thinking about our bedbug line, and we're thinking as well about where in the value scale we go. So if you wanted, you could do this using a reduced set of values, and that's a really good exercise to practice. So just maybe use those three. And some artists do lovely, very misty work which tends to use this, and they don't go down to these extremes. If you were doing lino cuts, so you were doing a monochrome lino cut, or if you were doing an ink drawing with an ink pen, you'd be using only the blackest black and the white. So you'd use the white of the paper, or whatever colour the paper was, and the black, and there'd be nothing in between. But you can create the effect of these, and this slightly relates to Nikki's question, I think, with hatching. So if you're using ink, you may not have, let me see if I've got an ink pen I can show this with. I've got a pen. No. I'll say I can do it with this. So by hatching like this, from a distance, that does create the effect of shading, and you can do cross hatching as well. And the further away you get, the more that gives the illusion of shade. Okay, so there you go, there is the cone. And right, so next we're going to take that a little bit further and do a, and we'll do a ball. Right, let me see, if you've got any questions, you'd be really welcome. Questions, or I am taking jokes now. Got any jokes? I should have some jokes ready. What is brown and sticky? It's one of my favourites. Does the colour of highlight depend on light source, or is it always white? Ah, that's another one. Right, Nikki, I'm going to have to add you to my star chart. Right. Nikki, you get a star for that question. Yes, it does. So if you're using, when you're using colour, the light source very much affects the colour of the highlight. So if you're working in black and white, then obviously you just judge the value. You don't use, you're not doing warmth or coolness. There is no warmth or coolness. These are completely neutral when it's a value scale. Obviously this is a warm coloured paper, so that's a bit deceptive, but yes, definitely. So it's a very common mistake that oil painters make when they're doing highlights. So when they're putting you know, like the glint of if there's, say, an eye which is wet, or I'm trying to think of an example, was something that's very shiny, and or they've got maybe flower petals that are quite smooth and picking up a lot of light and are very bright. It's very tempting to go right for this whitest white, and it can actually look really quite amateur when people do that. And if you look at what some of my favourite online art, I'm an oil painter. Yes, you are, Brian. That's great. I'm not criticising. You're a brilliant oil painter. But what I'm saying is, and you might disagree, Brian, but I think if you say warm up your highlights, so if you are doing those spots of the lightest lights on an oil painting or a coloured work, but I'm saying oil paintings because they tend to work from dark to light, whereas watercolourists work from light to dark. But in an oil, and I will get back to drawing in a second, if you look very carefully at your subject or your reference, you hopefully would see that those whites are very, very rarely like a titanium white. So if you use, if you want, titanium white allows you to go right to that very bright extreme. But actually, a lot of these things are more subtle and they've got some colour. So a lot of artists don't use titanium white, or if they're using titanium white, they will mix it with a colour to either warm it or cool it, because in rendering your painting, you can often get a much better. I hope this is probably more of an answer than you were after. So yes, the colour of the highlight does depend on that, but if you're working in black and white, you don't need to worry about colour temperature. Right, when I do this sphere, would you like, I don't mind, first person to say, I will do what you like. I can do it on white paper or brown paper. What would you like? Do you want me to do it in on a warm coloured paper, or do you want me to do it on black and white with graphite? I can do it either way. And Brian, do you agree with me about that? No such thing as one size fits all in colour values. It's all about relationships. Yes, they usually use straight up white because it worked once for them, so they think it'll work everywhere else. Yeah, very good. I'll just move my, let me just move my camera up so that Nikki can see your answer, Brian. Yeah, thank you. That's a very good point there. Yeah, so and it's a very much a personal style. You know, a lot of people do use the extremes, and a lot of people are very, very subtle. And a lot of artists try and stay away from those extremes until near the end. And that's a really good, I find that really good practice. It's very easy to go in too soon with those highlights and forget about the big shapes. But they do bring it to life. White, please. Okay, Creative Dragon. Yeah, thank you very much. Worth mentioning, actually, let me just show you the Soggy Rabbit drawing I had up. I hope these have got shiny eyes. Usually, yes. So this one here, this is a Soggy Rabbit drawing, and I don't know if you can see, but there is a highlight on the penguin's eye, and those Soggy Rabbit drawings they're just a sort of separate, they are illustrations, so they that's like the icing on the cake. So going in with that highlight is the icing on it. So it's the glamour shot of the whole picture. So it is a really seductive to go in there early with that highlight, but I would encourage you not to. Okay, so let's do a sphere then. Right, I'm going to move over to the drawing board. Okay. Oh, Brian, I need to give you a star as well. I'm just going to give you your star for that very, very helpful wisdom on values. Right. Okay. So, here we go. Right. I can move my... There we are. Right, lovely. So we're just going to do a simple sphere, and I'm going to use it as a teaching exercise, just to illustrating exercise, just to show you. Sorry, my camera's gone a bit awry. It gets a bit tipped over. And try and get it right. Okay, lovely. And I will focus it as it goes. I treat myself to a new piece of paper. Go mad here. Right, there we go. A nice piece of paper. This is actually very nice paper. Right. May I go to the CR? Right, my temptation is, I don't know what a CR is, Brian, but I think that I should say yes, you may. I have no idea what you are. Right, okay. What a CR is. Okay. Brown. Oh, Nikki, I'm really sorry. Creative Dragonfly got there first. Sorry. You'll have to come next time. Or you could do one in brown and let me apologise in person. I'm so happy to have you, Nikki, and I think it's your first time watching. So, but Creative Dragonfly was in there first with her request for white. So we'll do that, but if I can, I'll give you a choice over something later, maybe when we do the colour. Okay, so, right, let's get back to here. Oh, right, yes, you may. Please do, Ryan. Okay, right, so so we're going to draw a sphere. So let's get that initial shape right there. I'm not, you can if you want to draw around something. So you will see, hopefully I'm practicing what I preach. I'm not going to go in there too early with the darks. Okay, so this is the light source, like that. Right. I'm going to suggest it's sitting on a table. Let's just map that out there. Okay, so we've got a light source, and this is in daylight, so it's in normal light, kind of outside on a fairly sunny day, but not really, really sunny. Okay, so we've got our lightest light here, like that. Now if you imagine the insect climbing over the form, the insect is going to come out of the light into the shadow like here, and if the insect was climbing here they'd be like this, and I think they probably get into the shadow like there. Oh, brown's okay. Right, okay, well Creative Dragonfly is very generous. You're so generous, thank you. Okay, well what shall I do? What do you want, Nikki? Shall I change to brown? I can. It won't take me a second. So here we go. So this, you will remember, can you remember what this is called? For a star. You can have a star on my chart if you can remember. Not the bedbug line, there's another name for it. Can you remember the proper name for this? So this is the line where it will hit, it should really be the equator of the ball. So I'm going to actually shrink my ball a little bit to make that right. Terminator, well done Brian. That is the shadow Terminator. Okay, right, Brian, you're on 3. But Creative Dragonfly, that was really, that was very generous of you. So I'm going to give you one as well for generously allowing Nikki the choice. So Nikki, if you come in and say brown, then I will swap to brown. I'm happy for Bristol-born F1 driving. Oh really? Really? Yes, Terminator line. I didn't know. Oh, is that Hamilton? Is he Bristol-born? Really? I didn't know that. Wow, thank you. Okay, so you're an F1 follower, right? Okay, cool. Right. There we go. So notice that I'm not using my full range. So if we say up, let's go for, this is my darkest dark. So obviously with graphite, white is the top. Let's just do a few there so you can see. And I'm just going to do this very gradually like that. Okay, so I'm not even going to use the squares. You can do this as well if you like, sometimes. Quite fun. Right, so just trying to get a sense of the grade so that I can relate the drawing to it. Right, so I'm going to stay away from this area. In fact, I'm going to try and stay away from these and just work in these areas first. So then we've got a cast shadow. So let's say this cast shadow comes roughly here like that. Okay. Lando Norris. Oh, wow. That's brilliant. Where was which Grand Prix was it? Where was it? Oh, I'll have to look them up. Is Lando male or female? I don't know. Not that it matters, but it's just interesting because I know women are trying to break into that world. Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk about edges as well in a minute. So here's my cast shadow. And cast shadows, depending on the strength of the light, tend to have a sharper edge, particularly where they hit the table. Okay, yes, Terminator, Nikki, well done. Right, so you've all got Terminator. I better do that. And I think Nikki probably didn't see Brian's one. Russia. It was in Russia. Ah, okay. And Lando is a male name. Okay. Oh, well, thank you for this piece of news. That's excellent. Bristol on the map yet again. I wonder if you're in Bristol too, Nikki. Right. Okay. So here we go. Only one female. Oh, right. Oh, right. I thought there was someone breaking through now. And same in the jockey world. Right. So here we go. And let's just say that this table is not flat. Let's say this table is actually, this is for you, Brian, is actually a step. Okay? So, what's going to happen to the shadow here? Do you know? Right, so that shadow is going to move direction like that. And say it's a very narrow step. And I think it will come like that. Okay, so happy? I hope you're happy with this, Brian. Sharpness of the cast, just distance of the light source and the size of the light. Does it depend on the distance of the light source? Because, and the brightness. Because what about on a sunny day? So the sun is really, really bright and many, many miles away, and yet you can still get sharp cast shadows, can't you, from the sun? Right. So here we have what's called a lost edge, and we are going to find this edge in a little while, but hi guys, thanks so much for joining on Instagram. It's lovely to see you. Let me just say a quick hello. Hi, I'm Gail. It's really nice of you to join. You can see here some comments. So there are some people watching on YouTube and Twitch, and we're chatting here, and I can see your comments as well, so we can all talk together. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Right, so I'm looking at value scales, and oh right, because of its size. What's the inverse square law, Creative Dragonfly? This is a very, very erudite stream. This is my most knowledgeable stream. Like, if you tried moving a lamp closer and further, yes, I agree with that. Yes, you can. But the sun is a long way away. Maybe it's the brightness. Maybe the brightness has an effect as well. And maybe there's an atmosphere. I don't know. I think there are many things that affect yeah, okay, right. So let's look at some of our principles then. And so this is purely theoretical, but you can confirm this with observation. So I'm going to start by putting in this here. Right, a gold star for anyone who can tell me what this is called here, where under things, so very good if you're drawing people or animals or anything that, or if you're doing a still life, so if I'm doing a still life like this, when you're drawing things and you want to make them look like they're not just floating. So this is another thing that sometimes happens with amateur drawing. People can make their things look as though they're floating. So this is a phenomena that is worth understanding, and you can check it with observation. Who knows what this is a special part of the shadow. It's like a special sort of shadow there. Okay, and while you're thinking about that, from the word, measured light intensity is inversely proportional to the distance squared from the source of radiation. Wow, well, I'm glad it's not a linear relationship. Measured light intensity. Okay, right. Well, I guess the light intensity of a lamp compared to the light intensity. Oh, I see. So you're talking about the difference with the sun and the lamp, because the lamp is nowhere near as bright as the sun. Yes. So maybe if we were on a planet that was further from the sun, we wouldn't get such sharp shadows. Is that what you're thinking? Right. And this is all getting really excitingly advanced. I think we're going into physics, aren't we? Right. Who knows what this is called? Hello, Mark. Really nice of you to join. Hi. We're just doing some basic drawing exercises. Let me come and say hello. Hello, thanks so much for joining. There are some people watching on YouTube and Twitch, so you'll see their comments coming up there, so you can join the conversation if you want, or if you want to just lurk, then by all means, but welcome everyone watching on Instagram. Okay, so we've been looking at value scales, just to quickly recap, and we've got these. I've been looking also at pushing and pulling. So this is a basic value scale with the mid-tone in the middle, and then I've been talking about how you can push that. So you've got this one, the values is the mid-tone is nearer, so you've compressed the lights and they've got more darks. And then we talked about how that might actually work in practice with bird drawings, and we've got a bit of a star chart going, so if anyone wants to volunteer any answers to any questions, you can potentially earn a star. Right, so for the next star, what is this sort of shadow called here? Okay, I'll let you think about that for a minute. Right, we know this is the Terminator, and we know that we've got, let's say, atmospheric light coming in here. Okay, so let's imagine as well that our atmosphere back here has got a little bit of colour to it. We've got some background going on, and the reason I'm doing that is partly for the joy of some more lost edges, because lost edges are brilliant, and they're just a thing that make pictures come alive. They make the viewer's eye I think they make the eye relax, because it saves over explaining. So there we go, we've got so we've got a bit of background colour. We really don't need these lines. I'm going to use my rubber let's just clean that out a little bit there, because you will also notice if you're drawing things that, and if you really look, there is no edge. There is generally no line round an object. So you can, if you see my face and there are no lines, there's just the difference in the value and the colour. So it's really nice to try and lose edges and lose those lines when you're trying to draw something convincing and solid. Okay, so let's look at this shadow here. So this is just guesswork. This is completely invented, and you could do this. You could work this out for yourself, but with observation and trial and error. But you see this phenomena. Let me come on here. So you see this phenomena a lot in on the figure. So if you're drawing, doing life drawing, baseline or grounding, no, not quite. Although they would be very sensible names for it. Grounding, yes. So you see this phenomena of the shadow here. Very often, if people have got, like when you see, look at this, like that. Can you see on my shirt? I don't know if you can see that. There's a shadow of my fingers, and they're kind of wrapping around my arm. Oh, here we are, look, that's better, right there. So can you see how the shadow of my fingers is wrapping around my arm? Even though my fingers are straight, they're curving round, and that is a great way that you as an artist you can use to describe form, because the cast shadow from my fingers tells you very little about my fingers, but it tells you a lot about the arm, because it's telling you that that arm is going round and turning. And you see it, you quite often see it in plants when you've got intersecting branches, and you'll get that like there. Can you see on this hand, just round the wrist, you can see that cast shadow. You often see that on a branch. So this is an illustration for you, hopefully, of how I could probably focus it a bit better actually, of how a cast shadow can describe the shape. So even if I now rub out those lines of the step, like this, hopefully you still read it as a step, just because of those cast shadows. Accent, Nikki. Oh, right, there are so many. Okay, we've got something from Nikki here. Hello, Nikki. I'm going to get my star chart out ready because I feel one coming on for you. There are so many planets between Earth and Sun. Why don't we get their shadows when aligned like an eclipse? I don't know. I don't know why we don't get their shadows. When it's an eclipse, that is the blocking of the light from the sun, isn't it? Or the blocking of the light from the moon. Why don't we get the shadows of planets? Well, maybe we do. Maybe we just don't. They don't. I mean, if you think of all that space, maybe they don't move between us and the sun much. Maybe we do. I don't know. Or do you know, Nikki? I don't know. Anyway, right, here we go. So Nikki, you can have a star for that fantastic question and your guess. But I'm going to put you out of your misery, collective misery, and go back to the drawing board and show you. So here we are. We've got our cast shadow describing the form of the step there. Very well. There we go, like that. Okay. And this here is called the occlusion shadow. I will write that in so that you can see. So it's an occlusion shadow. And that, campers, is oh right, we've got 2 suggestions here, Nikki. I hope you can see these. So Creative Dragonfly said, Brian said, because the shadow is too far to be observed and the sunlight overpowers it. And Creative Dragonfly says maybe they have different orbits. So I don't know, but I think you'll get more sense out of them. So maybe we could draw some planets after. Okay, so here we go. This is called the occlusion shadow, and that is where basically this atmospheric light that is coming down and bouncing off here into here, like that, and sort of lighting up this shadow as well. So it's going all over, it's bouncing all over the place. This atmospheric light is it doesn't get right in here because it's too, or very little of it gets in that gap. So that's why, you know, if you're drawing, so here's my bird, to come back to the bird. So if I was drawing, say this bird had huge claws like this, let's give it really big, there's its claw, like that. You can show where the claw touches the ground by darkening the shadow. Let's see, it has, oh I know, sorry, this is a bit crude, but let's say this bird has just done a poo. Okay, so there we go, we've got our light coming from here. This would affect everything. The poo would have a cast shadow like that, and then if you want to make that poo look like it's really solid sitting on the ground, get that occlusion shadow in there. And suddenly that poo, can you see how much it suddenly develops a bit of really, it becomes real. Okay, so with the joy of poo, you can. Okay, so let's get back to here, and you can see then. So we're really nearly finished with this sphere, but what I'm going to do now is just strengthen things up and look for some lost edges. So we're looking, so here is a lovely lost edge, and when you're painting or drawing, what you can do is you can actually you know, cross that barrier with whatever your mark making tool is. Go into it with that tool, really to help yourself lose that line. So and there might be so we still have there will be a little bit of shadow on here. So the form would definitely darken as it turns away from the light, so it would be getting less light. There we go. Oh, excuse my tummy rumbling. Hopefully you can't hear that with the soundtrack. Okay, and let's go a bit darker here. I think we can go darker now. And then we can, so we'll have a lost edge here as well, depending on how dark we want to make that background. So now we're getting into the area of design. So when you see academic drawings of figures, you know, like those ones that they do for absolutely ages, and sometimes you see this on portraits as well. They design their backgrounds, and you can do a lot with your designed background. So let's imagine that we've actually got a sheet of something, or a curtain in the background, and it's been lit so that it's darker there. So you can use this technique to bring out certain contrasts. So when people maybe are drawing faces, you might, so say you were drawing me, you might put a really dark bit of background there and strengthen up the background, and you can do that. And now what we're doing is we're getting into the area of design. So when you see photographers and they use those kind of shady mottled backgrounds, and then you see those on oil paintings, sometimes they actually design that background, and if you look at where they've chosen to make it darker, they sometimes do that to bring out that contrast. And you can do that with colour temperature as well. So you can throw things forward, and the eye is picking up that contrast, so it picks up contrasts in shadow and temperature. Okay, so I think maybe we might make this slightly darker. I don't know if that would work, but I feel like that step is also, it's away from the light. I don't know. Okay, so there you go. So now we can go in with our very darkest marks. And the last thing to mention before we move on is a rule, which is, if you imagine your bedbug line is here, and if you look at me, my bedbug line, can you see it's there, there. I've got a patch here. If I turn like that, oh, I might be able to get a Rembrandt triangle on my nose. No, I can't. But you can see there. So I've got a patch of dark here, and here, and I've got a sharp bedbug line on my nose. Okay, so once you've got your bedbug line, something to remember as a general rule is when you're doing your bounce light looks really cool, I hope you agree, but you can go too far with that bounce light. So you need to make sure that this area where you're doing your bounce light, which can be really effective, is never lighter than anything on this side. So the way that we say that is, I'm going to go into the face to say it. Right, you ready? This is the pearl of wisdom about darks and lights. Pay attention, class. The lightest dark is always darker than the darkest light. That's the rule, and if you get the hang of that and you can see it working and you try it and you feel it, you can then break that rule. But basically that is the rule. The rule is in observation, because none of the direct light is falling on here. And the thing, the time when people often forget that is when you've got local colour or local pattern. So if, for example, this sphere was had a checkered pattern on it, say like that, or stripes, say it was like that. Okay, and then the way the rule works, and you may disagree with this, I don't know, is that these dark colours here, so say that these were the dark squares like that, and there are lots of optical illusions that work on this. So the darkest colours on here should never be as dark as the lightest darks, and vice versa. So this is going to be a dark square here, like that. This would be really dark down here. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Dark, so that's dark, that's light, and it goes into dark. I hope this, yeah, so like that. So it's really tempting when you're doing things like this to make those, to make these darks in the light darker than your lightest darks. And in general, this rule is will hopefully, if you pay attention to that rule, it will save you from that that issue. But it's quite it's one to watch for. Okay, I've kind of exaggerated it in there. Right, now what should we do? Shall we do a colour wheel? Let's see how we're doing for time. We've only got 25 minutes, so I definitely think time for a colour wheel. So let's get the colours out. Now, I know that, oh, we haven't done the night, right. Right, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to do that night very, very quickly just to show you. In fact, I'll do the colour wheel first. Let's get a bit of colour in here, because I would just like to talk about colour temperature briefly. So these are the pencils that I use, nicked from my daughter. There we go. They are absolutely amazing pencils. Let me focus that down a bit. There, and I'll put them here so you can see them. You're watching. Right, where's that? Where's my ball gone? Oh, here it is. Okay. There. Right, so look at these. Look at this lush pack. Mondelez, Kohinoor. and they're lovely and soft and really, really good. Okay, so rock shadows, any object between sun and earth, but there is no bounce light in space and light travels in, so yes, there is no bounce light. Yep. Rock shadows, any object between the sun and earth. Nikki, I really don't know. I'm completely out of my depth with that one. Maybe you can research it and come back and tell us next week. That would be the ideal scenario. Anyway, I better get on with this. Okay, so what I wanted to just talk about was the simple colour wheel, at least, and perhaps we can get on to the heady heights of colour temperature and how that works with bounce light. Let's see how far we get. But I'm going to leave 10 minutes at the end for the night. So yet again, thank you so much guys for being involved. You have kept me interested, and I've literally, this time is flying. Okay, so when you are choosing colours, this is a really good way, and don't be disappointed if it doesn't work out first time. This is a very good way to learn about, no dance, no, I'm really, no. Do you know what, I would, but I got really late prepping for the stream, so I haven't prepared the dance room. I can probably do a dance without, let me just have a look. I'll go and have a look in the dancing room. Let's see if it's got any music. Yes, I don't think, no, I don't know if that even had music in it. And it didn't have me, did it? Let's see if I can get in there. Hang on. Right, okay. Look, Brian, this is a leftover. Can you hear me? I think you can. Right. Coming in double. Okay, that is quite enough of that. I probably tripled my viewers for that that short moment. Right, do I get a star for that? Okay, no dance. Yes, right. Okay, we're back. We're back in the world of sensibleness. Okay, so red, yellow, and blue. They're right. So red, yellow, and blue. It's what I would love you to come away with is an understanding of colour temperature and how things like red, yellow and blue, simple as they look, aren't just that. So let's start with red, yellow and blue like that. This is the pattern I'm going to do like that. It's a traditional colour wheel. Not going to do anything particularly exotic. Going to split it up like that. Okay, 5 stars. Thank you so much, Creative Dragonfly. Yes, I think maybe I will sort some music for next time if you like that. Okay, so we've got this blue, red and yellow, and these are kind of primary versions of that. So hopefully, this is really weird. What I'm seeing on Instagram is very different to what I'm seeing here. Okay, so these are like your primary colours. So I've tried to choose a yellow that's not gold and it's not like a greeny yellow, and similarly a red that's not orange. It looks a bit orange on this camera. Okay, So now what we're going to do is go for the halfway. So just like we were going for the tonal value halfway, and this is something you can practice in paint or pastel or anything, we're going for the hue. I'm going for halfway hue. And if you, just on the subject of tone, if you may notice, and this is exaggerated because of these pencils, but actually certain hues do have a tonal value. So yellow tends to be lighter. Okay, that's just to complicate matters. Right, and then we'll go for a green, and I'm going for a mid green. Okay, so I'll put that there like that. So this is meant to be not a yellowy green and not a bluey green. It's a mid green. And these colours, if I put that right next to that red, you'll see they really sing against each other. A bit like when we looked at, you know, you can use that as a device. Like, so here when I made that a little bit darker, it makes it pop out. So you can use these contrasts, and the eye is really drawn to contrast. So similarly on here, you can use that as a trick. So if you have, you know, if you've got a rose and you put a red rose, and then you put a bright flash of green leaf behind it, it makes the rose pop forward. So that's there's a nice trick. Okay, so you've got your blue. Now let's go for a greeny blue. I'm not really teaching you very much here. I am conscious that that's a bit of a loss. But so then we've got this thing in the middle, which is a greeny blue. Okay, and if you once you start to understand this and how these work, you then will start to understand about muddied colours, because if you start adding, so this is actually a slightly muddy green, and oh Brian, you're learning, wow, or are you just learning by my dancing? So this is a slightly muddy green, and what is happening is there is actually, this green doesn't just have blue and yellow in it, it's got a little bit of red in it mixed in with the pigment in the pencil. So that is affecting my my colour, and it's the same when you're painting. So let's have another. So I should have used that one, that's less muddy. Can you see? It's still a yellowy green, but not so muddy. Okay, so if you're mixing colours and you sort of keep them close together on the colour wheel like that, they tend to get less muddy on your palette and less muddy on your picture. Okay, so what's halfway between red and blue for a really cheap star? Right, and then I'm going to go for a very yellowy, or a golden yellow here. Anyone want to tell me what's halfway between red and blue? Okay, there we go, there's a golden yellow. And then there is a reddish orange needed. Might need to mix that goes in here. So you can mix these with colours together. I don't think I even need to finish this, to be honest, you get the idea. But it's really good to practice this and to practice. I found with the pouring paint, the metallics colour mixed in and went a bit washed out, yes. Creative Dragonfly, I think if you were doing that with silver particularly, I think silver is, it's sort of, you know, it's got a real grey quality, so it would have been desaturating your colours probably. Okay, and so here we go. I'm going to take that star myself. There's a purple. So halfway between blue and red is purple, and then you would go for a reddish purple like that, and a bluish purple. Well, let's just, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carry that round like that and add a little blue in like that. Okay, so it's just really well. Purple is one of your favourites, yeah. So it's really nice, and obviously, you know, if you go for the opposite colour, it's a really quick win in terms of contrast. Oh, that's not the opposite, is it? I should have got purple. Sorry, I didn't know what I had in my hand. There, and it makes the colours pop. And obviously, like a purple has got quite a dark tonal value. So purple against yellow is extra poppy, like that. Okay, now we're going to talk about colour temperature. We've got 15 minutes, so let's just say colour temperature, key things to remember, and I could maybe do this later, is, as Brian likes to say, it's all relative. So you could say that purple is quite a cool colour. You know, if you consider, a lot of people think blue is the coolest colour. Cool as in cool temperature, or maybe even just really cool people like blue. And then orange is arguably the hottest colour. But what we really talk about is going round like that. So if you took your yellow and you went for a kind of greeny yellow, so if you were just somewhere this side a little bit, you might call that a cooler yellow. So if I was to just mix in a little bit of green there and give you, oh, hello Jaya, hello, nice to have you on here. Thanks so much for joining. And Creative Dragonfly, yes, it does, yeah. Okay, right, yes. Yes, so gold is on this side of, so if you were mixing colours and you were using gold is here in the hot area, and so if you were mixing gold with some blue colours, it's likely to go quite muddy. But if you mix your gold and you keep it kind of in this area, so if you're mixing your gold with reds and yellows, then it would hopefully still stay very vibrant. And then I guess you might do your blues, you know, the pouring is a mystery to me. Guys, if you watch Creative Dragonfly, they post really fantastic stuff like resin and paint pouring and mixing in a beautiful marbling effect. So anyway, so there's the key thing to learn from this is that you might think that blue is a cool colour, but if it was a purpley blue, or in fact a greeny blue, you might say that's kind of warming it up, kind of either way, because it's moving that way. So and similarly, if you look at red, you can cool red down. So if you go to these kind of purpley sides, that cools it down, and if you go to the yellowy orangey side, that's called a warmer red. And this, if you have a look at paintings where people have, like I absolutely love paintings like where light is shining through ears, or sometimes you see like very romantic Victorian paintings often have this, and they've got, or they might have the light shining through hands, or you might have light over a candle and you can see, you know, when you can see through the hand and it kind of glows. And they do that using this. So they do that with playing with that contrast and playing with setting the background to set up those hot colours. So this orange, you know, I can make it look more vibrant by putting some sort of blue next to it, and I can really try and make it sort of make that blue, that orange pop out with a bit of blue, and even more so if I go darker. So I'm using both the colour, both the hue and the value to create that pop. Okay, so lastly, I would love to just show you that reference photo of the night, because I got it ready and I think it would be really useful to do. If you look on my website, you will see these pictures are available. So here you go. So if you're watching on Instagram, we're looking at this. This is, so you can do, this is a really good, one of the A-level students yesterday came up with this, and I just thought this is the perfect subject for someone to draw. It's pretty simple. A lot of people have got chess pieces, and one of the things about it is the variation in the shadows and the edges. So what I'm going to do is, to make it easier, I'm going to suggest we do what I have done. Here's one I prepared earlier, but you can do this yourself. But if you draw from life, it's always better. But right, Jaya, by the way, you might be interested to know we've got star system going. So Brian and Creative Dragonfly and Nikki have all got some stars. So if you want to pop in with some answers to things, then you might earn yourself some stars. And stars are worth absolutely nothing in the real world, but it's going pretty well here. And Brian. If Brian's jokes were better, he would have got more, but unfortunately he came up with some really rubbish jokes, so he's only got 3 stars despite adding in some really, really good art comments. Whereas Creative Dragonfly is on 4, and I think Creative Dragonfly pipped it by saying that Nikki could have the sphere in colour, but actually we went for black and white because I'd started. Anyway, I ramble. So for Nikki's sake, I will do this on the coloured paper. Okay, let's get up here. And oh, look at this colour temperature. See how, exactly as I was saying, the contrast here, this head is popping forward. So this was inspired by Arthur Gaines' stream. He was doing this reference photo and shared this photo. But the contrast between the light and dark makes the head pop forward, and also the fact that this is warm and this is cool. So if you look at the colour wheel, can I get them on at the same place? Yes, I can, like that. Okay, so if you look at the colour wheel, you can see that this background is very much in this area, and this side of the head is very much in this cool area here. And so using that same principle, it's really popping forward. Oh, you do think, yes, well, oh yes, that's very kind of you. Well, let's just see, shall we? We'll see how he behaves for the last section. He may have fallen asleep because where Brian is, it is actually very late, and we're very lucky to have Brian with us. He's a great streamer as well. I thoroughly recommend checking out Brian's stream. He does great demos. And he's on Instagram. You might have found him already. Okay, so I'm just going to move this up here for the benefit of people who are watching. You are awake. Ah, okay. I thought you'd gone a bit quiet. Right, so let's move those out of the way, and I'm going to go with black and white. Let's see if I've actually got, oh, here we are. Right, okay, so let's just do this in black and white. I'm going to make it a bit smaller. And what I'm going to do is just kind of start this exercise enough so that you get the general idea, and then you can download the photo if you want to practice yourself. So what I'm going to be doing is very roughly, so I'm getting the big shapes. So there we go. Whenever you're, oh, we need to do it here. Okay, so when you're drawing, get those big, maybe I can make my life easier. I'm just going to move my camera a second there. Okay, that's better. Right, so thumbnails. Let's do a quick thumbnail. Okay, so I want to get that shadow in. When we did this, at school, the subject had a really lovely long. Oh, Brian, yours. Thank you, and thank you, Creative Dragonfly. That's really kind of you. Okay, so we're nearly done. So big shapes. Not committing too much. I'm looking for those. Let's just get that overall shape in. Get my camera straight because it's not. There we are. Okay, right. So we've got 2 sections under here, and a nice bit of shadow there on the flat surface. Okay. So when you're working with charcoal and black, it's very easy to get muddy. They tend to mix. So I'm going to just reserve that lightest light there. I can see some highlights. So there's a highlight there, a highlight there, a highlight on that ear, a highlight. So if I was working in oil, I would do this near the end. And to Nikki's observation earlier, I would, right, let's get that there. I would probably either warm up or cool down my white before I used it. So I'm looking at those negative shapes now. Here we go, just get those in. Can you see that? I hope you can. So I'm going to make that whitest white because I want the night to pop forward. And by the way, you need to keep your nights off the side. There is an expression for that, isn't there? Oh, hello Leon, it's so nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Hey guys, this is my son Leon Vlogs on YouTube, and I'm trying to persuade him to be a moderator for Creative Dragonfly, because after the experience last time I was thinking we could really do with someone who knew how to block people and see people off when they were being cranky, but as it happened, I think you guys leapt to my rescue, for which I thank you so much. I noticed the flurry of positive comments and was very grateful. Okay, so I've drawn the negative shape, and now let's look at that bedbug line, because it's very interesting. We've got, so I've got a bit of a section here with the shadow, cast shadow there. Okay, now we've got this whole section here is in shadow, like that, and it's relatively sharp shadow. Then this section here, this obviously turns very, very sharply down like that. I think I've got that shape a little bit wrong. Let's get that down there. Okay, so this is clearly, I know that's black there. Okay, and so now let's look. We've got a sharp bit here, and then this turns that way, and there's a sharp edge here. Okay, I hope this is making sense. Now look what happens here. It starts, and you can see on the thing itself, look at that shadow there. Because it's turning really in a round way, it's a soft edge, so it's really good to make note of that in the way that you shade. So this is going to be a soft grading here. This area will change more gradually. Okay, and who can remember what that shadow is called under here? What's this? Nice and dark. You can see it quite well on that reference photo. And the shadow's not so strong here because it's further away from the object, so more atmospheric light is getting in. Last star. Okay. Right, and we have got, there's still quite a lot of contrast there. Maybe I've done it a little bit too much. The pieces getting some bounced light on here. This is also an occlusion shadow here, so you can see it's not just where it touches the ground. This, oh thank you Creative Dragonfly, it is part of the cast shadow, the occlusion shadow, but it is actually, yeah, so this whole thing here is the cast shadow, and this bit here is the occlusion shadow, and similarly there. So right, and it actually comes down like this. Okay, and then we've got the night's eye there, and it's a little bit in shadow there, a little bit there. So actually I think that's probably enough. That gives you the general idea. We've got there's a little bit of mane there, and I can probably even with my putty rubber just simplify that and rub out the rest. Look, I've got these lovely lost edges. So there's lost edges here. The angle's slightly wrong. It does come in a bit more in there. But that there is where the tonal value is the same, and it's just a really nice thing to practice. So I would urge you to get your chess pieces out and draw them, because you've got some lovely shapes there. They're really simple, not too intimidating, and yeah. So here we are, it's 5 and it remains only for me to thank you so much for joining. I'm going to have to dish out some more stars, and I am Nikki, if you're still watching, this is your extra one for being first. I am totally fixing this, so you all get 4 stars. That's because I love you all, and I really, you know, like children, I couldn't possibly lift one higher than the other. Like on the horses, can a highlight be beside a terminator? Oh my goodness, wow, that's a great question. Okay, so before you go, so it is, I think it is on this picture. So this is just a photo, I haven't doctored this. So there's a highlight on the horse's nose, on that point just there. So can you see? And so highlights do depend, what you've brought out there so nicely, which is, I forgot to mention, is that highlights depend on where the viewer is in relation to the light. So the form shadow doesn't change wherever you are. The form shadow is on the object, and it's about the conversation between the object and the light. But the other thing, the highlight, is moves. So if you move, the highlight will move. So the highlight, if we went back to this here, the highlight, the spot of white, the whitest white you might say, may not be there where the light source is. It might be somewhere like this, and I don't know from a physics point of view whether it can, I don't think it can actually be in the shadow if there's only one light source. And obviously it depends on the texture of the object, so I deliberately chose a shiny object there. But yeah, that's another great question. Well, Nikki, it's been so great having you. I hope it's been all right for you watching on Instagram. And Brian and Leon and Creative Dragonfly, thank you so much. So next week we are going to be doing autumn leaves. So I'm going to hopefully relate it again to this this colour temperature thing. Let's move that out a little bit, and then I can put more in the screen, in the shot. There. Okay, so next week I'm hoping to do autumn leaves. I'm going to go to my end screen, but just leave my I am going, honestly. I just want to talk to you for a second about what we're doing next week. And I actually don't have a particular, hopefully that'll work. Yes, there we go. Hi. So I don't have a particular plan in terms of whether we're using oil paints or what, but thank you, Creative Dragonfly, that's really lovely. Yes, I hope you all have a lovely evening. Thank you so much for joining, and yeah, come back next week. We'll be doing autumn leaves, lots of cools and warms in there. Right, I am going to go now. Take care, have a great day tomorrow, and see you next week, or see you before on social media.